Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to Once in a Wild Wednesday, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you're having a very safe and fun holiday, if you're doing anything at all. I know it's in the right smack dab in the middle of the week, so happy Wednesday regardless, and we're glad to see you here. If this is your first time joining us on Once in a Wild Wednesday, this is our weekly live stream that we present every single Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So I'm so glad that you are here, if you are here for the first time. It is a free show, but we do have donation options for you to support our animals and our zoo. First of all, that is what we do. We are a mobile zoo, and my name is Amanda, and I am the founder of Once in a Wild, our mobile zoo based in South Texas. And we do bring animals to classrooms and birthday parties, all sorts of events, all sorts of things. And we'll talk about some upcoming events here in a little bit. But we do, of course, rely on your support. So we greatly appreciate you being here today for our free show. However, there are donation and tipping options down below, and they're all in the description below, as well as are all of our videos. They're always down there in the description for you. Very, very convenient. We do have Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. We have our Amazon wish list at onceinawild.com. And thank you for your donations if you've already donated in the past. And we're really happy to see you here today. I hope the picture's looking good. Let me know how it looks. Let me know how it sounds. I want to make sure that everything's coming in crystal clear for you guys, and we're always improving all the time. And without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So welcome aboard, everybody. And hey, Donna. Donna says she's feeling green. JK, I don't even know what feeling green means. Is that like the Kermit song? Kermit was always one of my favorite Muppets. I always really liked the Muppets growing up. And Kermit always says it's not easy being green, but I don't really know what that means. So today's presentation, we're actually going to be meeting some green animals. And again, if this is your first time joining us or your 50th time joining us, welcome. And we are going to be meeting some green animals for St. Patrick's Day. And before we begin, though, I'm going to just go over a few brief announcements. We do have some exciting events coming up. I don't want to forget to bring them up. So over at onceinawild.com, you can actually see both of these events and all the details very, very easily there on our homepage as soon as you go to onceinawild.com, which of course is down below for you as well, and in the description box down below. But we do have, of course, today we have our free live stream animal encounter, which we have every single Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central. That's a virtual encounter, of course, free of charge every single Wednesday. But we have a couple of in-person animal events coming up, and they are public events. Hey, Wendy and kiddos, we are so happy that you are watching as well. I see your comment. But we do have Pet Fest coming up on March 27th of this year, and that's coming up right around the corner. So we would love to see you out there if you happen to be near the New Braunfels area. That is where Pet Fest is. And again, you can find that at onceinawild.com and also on our social media as well. But onceinawild.com has all of the details for you. We also have our Spring Extravaganza featuring Once Upon a Party, which are all of our Disney character friends. And they're going to actually be hosting that event, but we're going to be there as well. The Spring Extravaganza is on April 3rd, so that's coming up as well. And that, of course, is like an Easter spring themed event. There's going to be like an Easter egg hunt and some meet and greets with our rabbit Sandor and a lot of our animals there, and a petting experience with some of our more petable type animal. And there's going to be all sorts of fun activities there. However, you have to buy your tickets ahead of time. So for the Spring Extravaganza on April the 3rd, which is a Saturday, please go to the website. Go to our website first, onceinawild.com. You'll see the link right there. It's really hard to miss. It's like a big box right on the homepage. And that is where you get your tickets for that event. You must buy tickets ahead of time because it is a limited event. So I just want to make sure you guys know that. And I will announce it next week as well. Then we will see how many tickets are left. So we would love to see you at both of those events. Pet Fest, I don't think there's a limit or on how many people can attend, because it's a really huge event. It's going to have tons and tons and tons of vendors, and we're going to be one of them. We're also going to be doing some live animal presentations there as well on stage, as well as having our petting experience there with some of our animals like Sandor the rabbit, the guinea pigs, the Pekin ducks, the tortoises, and a bearded dragon, and all sorts of animals are going to be there as well. So we'd love to see you out there soon, right around the corner on March the 27th. I want to make sure. Yes, March 27th is going to be Pet Fest over in New Braunfels, Texas, and the Spring Extravaganza featuring Once Upon a Party, our Disney friends, is also going to actually be in New Braunfels. And again, that's a limited access with tickets spot ahead of time. So that's all I have to say about that. We hope to see you there, but we're glad you're here. And let's see who's chiming in already. It looks like Donna's here and tagging a whole bunch of animal loving friends. Hello, nice to see you guys. We love you guys just as much as you love the show, I'm sure. And it does help us out to tag your animal loving friends or anybody that you would think would be interested in animal programs, like teachers or moms or dads or whoever, even grandmas and grandpas, whoever loves animals, you are welcome here. We also love teaching those of you that may not be familiar with animals to love animals. That everybody's welcome as long as you would like to come and watch. You are welcome here. Oh, are you about to experience a storm? So my friends that live over all the way across in Miami, they're watching the show and they said they're waiting for a big storm. Hope we don't lose power. I hope you don't lose power as well. That gives me a flashback to our winter storm craziness that we had a few weeks ago. Can you believe that was just a few weeks ago? And now we're having like weather in the 80s and 70s now here in Texas. Someone says, how are you doing, Amanda? Or should I say Miss Amanda? You can call me Miss Amanda or Amanda. Either one is totally fine. It's good to see you. Amanda's just fine. That's my name. My full name is Amanda Winter. Some people call me Miss Winter, but Amanda is totally fine. That's what I usually go by. And again, we are going to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day today. I did want to also let you guys know that next week I'm planning a whole video, a whole live stream, I should say, for our next live stream next week on Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central. We are going to be talking about nothing but rabbits. I wanted to go ahead and go over kind of rabbit care. Should you adopt a rabbit? Should you not? Are rabbits good Easter gifts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Because Easter's right around the corner, right? And a lot of people think about maybe purchasing a rabbit for their children or for themselves. So I definitely want to bring about some education there. And Sandor, the Flemish giant rabbit, will be probably the only animal attending next week's program. But this week's program, we have 3 animal species that are actually green. So I thought I would celebrate St. Patrick's Day in that way. I hope everybody's having a safe and fun St. Patrick's Day so far. I'm sure you kids are either in spring break or you finished your spring break and now you're back in school. So I hope you had a good day. And I hope you're learning a lot in school. Speaking of school, we do a lot of school programs. We can bring the zoo to you virtually through Zoom. We have all sorts of mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates that we can bring to your class and teach them all about biomes and habitats and adaptations and all sorts of things that you would like to learn about animals. We are booking our programs very, very fast, and we're booking a lot of them. So I do recommend, if you're interested in that sort of thing, to go ahead and book as soon as you know that you would like us, because I know before long it's going to be summer and then we'll be doing nothing but birthday parties and all sorts of homeschool, maybe summer school things and daycare events, and that's really great too. So we're getting very busy. We're very happy about that. And but my point is, if you have something in mind that you would like to book, a birthday party, event, classroom, presentation, please do that as soon as you can and let me know if you're interested in any of that. So let me go ahead and get started here. I'm going to make sure everything is up and running on my camera. You guys are wonderful and patient as always. And again, if this is your first time visiting, my name is Amanda and this is Once in a Wild. So let's go ahead and meet our first critter. Remember, we're meeting all green animals today for celebration of St. Patrick's Day. And it's also coming up on the 20th is going to be, I think it's World Frog Day. I always want to say National Frog Day, but it's World Frog Day. So even more of a big deal. So here's our beautiful green frog. Her name is Frances, and she is an African bullfrog. The other name for the African bullfrog is the pixie frog, or African pixie frog, some people call them. And you may be thinking, why do they call them pixie frog? Are they Tinkerbell? No, that would be a really cute name for a pixie frog. And I think it's a pretty popular name for a pixie frog, Tinkerbell, super cute. They remind me of like a fairy or something like that. But the real reason that they are called the pixie frog is from part of their scientific name, because you guys know that all animals have what we call common names, like the African bullfrog, and then they have scientific names. So part of her scientific name is Pixiecephalus, which literally means small head. You can see her body's kind of big, and her head is fairly small in comparison to her body. Now, Frances here is only about 3 years old, or 3 years young, and this species can live into their 20s or 30s. They are a very long-lived type of animal for a frog, especially. And when they get their adult size, for females, they're not as big as this, but male African bullfrogs can actually reach the size of a dinner plate. And they are big and round and heavy. They're one of the largest and heaviest type of frog in the entire world, which makes a lot of sense because they are from Africa. And a lot of animals are extra, extra large there, right? If you thought animals were large in Texas, you haven't seen anything until you visit Africa, or at least seen the animals from Africa, right? Like elephants and giraffe and all those guys. So following suit with that, we do have frogs that are extra large too. They are an unusual shape. They're very round. They have a tiny head for the shape of their body. And this one we do believe is a female, though, because of her vocalizations. If you've seen Frances before, first of all, we named her Frances, which goes either way. If she ends up being a boy and I'm wrong, then Frances it is. Either way, it can go for either gender, right? Sometimes we do that with animals we don't know the gender of when we first get them. When we got Frances, she was only about the size of her head, and now she's about this big. She still fits in my hands and everything, but she will get a lot bigger than this, regardless of gender. Even females get pretty large. So, but the reason I think that she's a girl, and I'm pretty sure, is because of her vocalization. So male African bullfrogs make a typical bullfrog noise, which sounds kind of like a burp. Sounds like a bullfrog. You guys probably know what that sounds like. If you really want me to, I'll do an impersonation of one, but not yet. And then the females have more of a chirping noise, so it's very, very different sounding in their vocalization. So I've heard her doing little chirping noises very quietly, and other than that, she doesn't make any noises at all. So I am pretty sure that she's a girl. However, she's still very young, so time will tell, and we'll be 100% sure when she gets all the way full grown. She's also taking a while to grow. Typically, if a male is this age, they will be a little bit bigger than this. So they are awesome, awesome frogs. These guys are, like I said, an African species. They typically live in savannas and places like that in Africa. So in Africa, in savannas especially, there's not really seasons. They have a wet season where it rains a lot, and then they have a dry season where it really doesn't rain whatsoever. So this type of amphibian, because of course it's an amphibian, frogs are amphibian. Amphibians include frogs, toads, salamanders, newts, axolotls, and other animals like that. And all amphibians have slimy skin, which must stay moisturized in some way, shape, or form. They can't use lotion because lotion would actually hurt them. There's chemicals and things in lotions that can seep into their skin and hurt them. So instead of using lotion, they have a natural slime coat on their body, which amphibians have, and also fish have sometimes too, to be able to be streamlined in the water, right? These guys retain moisture with their slime, their slimy skin, and if they can't be near water, they have to adapt and be able to make do during dry periods of their habitat time, if that makes sense. So when it's dry and there's not much rain out there in the African savanna where they're from, these guys will actually dig underground and make a little tiny tunnel, really just the size of their body. That's really all they need, because all they're going to do during the dry season is really just go to sleep. They're going to take a nap, and that's kind of a form of hibernation, right? And then they basically create a even weirder slime over their body, and it's called a slime bag. So they already have slime on their skin, but what they will do during the dry season when they're sleeping underground is they will make a sort of sleeping bag out of their own boogers. Yum! So they will use their snot to create like a very tight sealed bag over their entire body. They'll shut their eyes, and that little bag will help them survive the entire dry season and retain enough moisture to be able to live as a frog does. And by the time the rains come back and they feel the trickle of water coming down, seeping through the ground and into their little tunnel that they dug, then that will signal to them that it's time to wake up. So they will kind of wake up, and then they will eat the slime bag off of their own body. Yep, you heard it. They eat their own boogers. Isn't that gross? Please don't do that at home, kids. You are not a frog. You are a human. Humans shouldn't do that, although I know they do when they're little. Or I hope just when they're little. Ugh. But anyway, these guys will naturally do that to basically break the slime bag off and escape, but then they'll just eat it. They'll eat the rest of it. Kind of like a gecko will eat its own shed skin when they're ready to shed. A frog will kind of do that if they're in that kind of hibernation time. And that will help them wake up, get out of their slime bag, and then they'll start to dig out of the soft ground that's starting to flood, right? They better get out of there because they got to breathe. Even though they're an aquatic type animal, usually, they still have to breathe air. So they got to get out of there. So they start digging up onto the surface, and then they'll start finding like a pond, a slow-moving river, a lake, or something like that. Typically a pond or some kind of maybe like a swampy area that they live in, something with water, right? Fresh water. And they will start to kind of make little territories. And if they are male, they will kind of establish their territories by making that croaking noise that you guys probably know what a bullfrog in general sounds like. Bullfrogs here in the United States actually sound like that too. They make a croaking, kind of burping type noise. And that is actually to establish their territories. That's going to tell other male bullfrogs to stay away, or else there's going to be a fight. They will fight each other for their little established territories. They're not very large, but they're enough so they can have their own space. And then what they will do is start croaking some more, and then females will start finding the males that are croaking, and they will actually select the males that they really like. And I don't really know what determines that, if it's the size of the male, the deepness of his voice, maybe that's really attractive to her, who knows. But regardless, she will select certain males, and she will go over there and they will breed, and she will lay their eggs, her eggs, and they will become fertilized in the water. And frogs actually participate in external fertilization most of the time. There's a few exceptions to the rule. There's animals that, well, they technically really all participate in basically water fertilization instead of internal in their bodies. But some frogs do take care of their eggs in different ways and things like that. But these guys will basically have their eggs and everything just the way that most frogs do, which is they will breed. They will have their eggs in the water, like I said, if they're fertilized. They will stay in the water, and they will hatch in the water. But what Dad does is he will stick around. And since he's got his own little territory that he's figured out and established and fought off all the other rival males with his toughness and how they fight, by the way, is not too super brutal. It's hard to talk today. But they do have sharp teeth. These guys do have 3 very sharp teeth on the bottom of their jaw. It's just on the bottom jaw. They do have other teeth too, but they're very tiny. But these 3 teeth that they have point up like, well, I'll just show you. They're kind of like this. And they're only on the bottom jaw, and they're very sharp and very pointy, and that's what they kind of use to poke each other or bite each other if they have to. They might just shove each other around or, you know, talk to each other and say, hey, get away from me. But if another frog is being stubborn about that and wants to fight, then they can use their teeth. But then, so what Dad will do is stick around, and Mom will actually leave after laying the egg. She doesn't really do much with the baby. She's kind of just lays the eggs and leaves and goes about her business. That's just what Mom does in this species. And Dad will actually stick around, and since he's got an established territory and his instinct tells him to stay around in that territory and stay with the babies, stay with the eggs, stay with the tadpoles that hatch out, and stay with those babies until they're grown and leaving on their own. So he actually will stick around for that entire duration. It takes a few months usually with the species. It can take longer depending on seasonal changes and things like that. But hopefully they grow up pretty quickly, because as soon as the dry season comes back, that water will actually start drying up. And if it dries up too quickly, Dad will not only guard and protect and take care of his little babies, he will actually keep digging into the earth to make sure there's more water. So sometimes water will be like kind of underneath all that and bubble up from the earth, or maybe if there's like one little section of a little puddle next to each other and there's another puddle next to that one, and so on and so forth, he'll dig them together and make like a little tunnel, or not a tunnel. Remember, they dig a tunnel for like quote unquote hibernation purposes, but they also can dig to make 2 puddles into 1 puddle, and that way it's a bigger puddle for everybody. I hope that makes sense. But regardless, he will try to make sure that there's enough water for everybody. Isn't that neat? So they make excellent dads. Mom, not so much. She just kind of leaves. That's not super common in the animal kingdom in general for Dad to stick around. There's a few species I can think of that do that. But Dad frog, and in this case of the African bullfrog, he's the one that takes care of the babies until they're ready to grow up. And when they metamorphosize into a little miniature frog, they will be ready to kind of explore on their own. And that's what they do. Aren't they cool? Happy St. Patrick's Day, Bonnie. Good to see you out here. And you remember Francis, Milky Rosie? Wonderful. And Ricardo is saying hello with some green animal emojis. Everybody tell me what your favorite green animal is. I would love to know. My favorite green animal is a Jackson's chameleon. But I have so many favorites. Francis is one of my favorites too. Ricky is giving me a lizard, a alligator/crocodile emoji, and another lizard, and then a bunch of frogs as well. There's a lot of green animals. See if you guys can think of any more green animals. There's lots of fish as well. Anyway, so these guys are amazing animals. Like I said, they're one of the largest frog species in the world when they grow up, and they live a long time, and they're great dads. How neat is that? A lot of people ask me what they eat with such big teeth. Well, they are carnivores. But a fun thing about this species and most species of frogs is when they are tadpoles, just little baby versions of a frog, right? Because all amphibians, including frogs, they hatch out from eggs underwater. It's like a gelatinous kind of jelly egg that they that they're laid, and then they have to hatch out of that little jelly egg. It's not like a hard shelled egg like a chicken or any bird. It's very strange. It's almost like a fish egg, and then they will come out almost like a fish. They have gills. They are almost like a worm-like creature called a tadpole, right? And then eventually they completely change. They do what we call metamorphosis, right? They metamorphosize. They will start to grow legs. Eventually they lose their gills. Most amphibians gain lungs so they can then breathe, like we said before, air. And most of them lose their tails, and therefore they don't have a fish tail to swim with anymore. Some frogs, though, they have big back legs for swimming, and so they can still swim a little bit, but then they become semi-aquatic as opposed to fully aquatic. So they go from a fully aquatic baby to a semi-aquatic adult most of the time, and that is all frog species, right? Some frog species are better swimmers than others, but this one's kind of half and half. Like I think we discussed, since they do have that, they've had to adapt to a dry season and a wet season, so they're totally half and half even. But what I was going to say is, as a baby, they actually eat vegetables. They are herbivores as babies. So when they're little tadpoles, their little mouth is really only capable of eating things like algae and other plants that are in the water, pond, puddle situation that they live in, right? So they're very well adapted to surviving that way. And then when they start metamorphosizing, their digestive system will also change too, and then they become a carnivore. And when they become a frog like this, and all the way through the rest of their entire life, they are carnivores. That means they don't eat any more plants whatsoever. They only eat other animals. And they can eat animals like, fish, worms, bugs, other frogs sometimes. They can eat all sorts of things. They can eat a bird if it gets too close. They can eat mammals if they get too close. This is an opportunistic carnivore. And fair enough, most carnivores in the wild are opportunistic, because that just means they take whatever opportunity comes around, because it's the wild and they have to survive. And if they don't eat now, they may not eat for days and days. So whatever comes too close is fair game for an African bullfrog. They essentially will kind of jolt forward a little bit. They don't really jump too far, but they will kind of pop forward, open their mouth, stick out their sticky tongue, and grab whatever is nearby that looks like food. So Francis's favorite food, well, is really everything, but Francis does eat mice. About once a week, or maybe every other week, I will give her a rodent of some kind, a smaller mouse, a rat pinky, something like that. That is really good for them and helps them grow, get lots of calcium for their bones. And Francis also eats things like superworms and crickets, as well as dubia roaches and all sorts of things. But I have never had Francis not eat a meal. Francis is a great eater, which most African bullfrogs are. You are watching. That is wonderful. The great grandma and triplets. That is so great to see. And you said you're waiting on that storm. So let me know if you want to know anything about Francis in particular, about frogs. Remember, World Frog Day is coming up on the 20th. So that's basically just a day of awareness about frogs. Unfortunately, frogs and other amphibians across the globe are becoming more and more scarce throughout the globe. And frogs and amphibians in general are some of the most endangered type of animals on Earth. Unfortunately, there's many endangered species of amphibians. Luckily, the African bullfrog is not one of them. They're doing very well in the wild as of now, but that could change at the drop of a hat. See, amphibians are very sensitive. So amphibians have slimy skin, like we talked about before, and they require certain, certain things to grow up, like water, right? Clean water, fresh water typically, right? And they need certain temperatures. They need everything to be just right to be able to thrive and reproduce and all of that. And so if the environment is sick, they're some of the first ones to become sick too. So they're what we call indicator species. And indicator species end up being some of the more sensitive type of animals. So indicator species, if they become sick, that is kind of a warning system for our future. So animals that are more sensitive become affected by things like climate change, toxins in the water, pollution in general, plastic, microplastics, things like that, or even change in temperature, like I said, climate change, things like that. So they are some of the first ones to be affected by all of that because of their sensitive nature. They have sensitive skin, slime, they live in water. I mean, it's all the above is kind of working against them. Just like the ocean has a bunch of animals that are suffering right now because of all the ill effects from the ocean right now, the pollution, the temperature changes, all of that stuff. So unfortunately, frogs and other amphibians are suffering across the globe. But the good thing is that we can do a whole bunch of stuff to help. So let me know if you can think of any ways to help frogs in your own environment or across the world. One great way to help frogs all over the globe is by supporting zoos and aquariums that have frogs. Most zoos and aquariums that have frogs that are accredited, or in some way they have like a breeding program or something, they are helping to breed and basically conserve those species by helping out in conservation efforts. So either they are surveying frogs, maybe studying them, they might be breeding and re-releasing certain types of amphibians, they may be sustaining the species just by having them at the zoo, and of course they are raising awareness regardless of any of that. They're at least having the frogs and amphibians there to raise awareness to other visitors that they even exist and that there is a problem. So many amphibians across the world are endangered. So one of my favorite amphibians in the world, you guys know, is the axolotl. Axolotls are critically endangered. So that's a great example of an animal that needs a lot of help. So there are many ways that you can help. That's one way, is by visiting and supporting local zoos and aquariums that have frogs, like us, right? So we don't necessarily breed frogs or participate in direct conservation per se, but we would like to in the future. We would love to participate in frog conservation someday directly, but by bringing awareness about these issues, we can educate the public and basically allow them to even have that idea in their head that this is a problem. So ways that you can help at home are very easy. Things like picking up trash, using less plastic, using less chemicals on your lawns, because frogs eat bugs outside. And that's why frogs are also so important. Not only are they indicator species for our planet that can help us know if the Earth is healthy or not. Newsflash, it's not really that healthy right now. But they help in that way. But they also help us by eliminating other diseases by getting rid of a lot of mosquitoes, flies, gnats, and other pesky bug, roaches, and things like that. And that helps the planet to stay healthy by having less disease, right? And that's what we need right now. So having less chemicals in your yard, not spraying pesticides and things like that. There are many alternatives to pesticides. I think we talked about that last week, actually, last Wednesday on our last live stream. And you can even provide homes for toads and frogs in your own garden and backyard if you have a backyard. And even if you have maybe just an apartment, you can actually go outside and listen to frogs and survey which frogs are making what noises. If you study frogs, it's really neat, and you can write down which frogs you hear, because it's really important to know for science, because we can take records of which vocalizations you're hearing, because that's how scientists actually study frogs most of the time, to see if they are, I'm just taking a break with my hands, falling asleep, to see if they are around. Is by listening, because each frog species, if you study them online, they all have a different voice. So here in the United States, I used to participate in this. I would actually go out to, when I lived in Florida, especially, there were lots of estuaries and different places like that where there'd be a ton of frog species. And you would go out and listen to which noises you could hear, and you can look up on the internet. It's kind of like bird watching or listening to bird noises, same thing. And you can kind of just write down which frogs that you're hearing. And you can send that off to people that study frogs and let them know what's going on in your area. That actually does help quite a bit. We used to do that in zoo school. That was pretty cool. So that's a really easy way to help as well. Does Francis have eyelashes? That's a great question. No, Francis does not have eyelashes, but they do have great, big, beautiful eyes, don't they? So the reason they don't have eyelashes is because they don't have hair. So frogs do not have any sort of hair, like a mammal or even a spider, for example, or arachnid. They don't have any eyelashes. Even birds sometimes have eyelashes, though, and they certainly don't have hair. They have feathers. But there are no feathers nor hair, anything of the sort, on Francis's eyes. They don't really need eyelashes. They do have a third eyelid. We can see if we can get Francis to shut her eyes. Ooh, see the third eyelid? So that third eyelid, or nictitating membrane, is clear and see-through, and that helps to clean their eye when they shut their eye. It helps to clean their eye. An extra eyelid always helps with that. Ooh, look at that shot. Oh my goodness. I'm the frog now. Let's shut her eyes again. Whoop. This doesn't hurt her, by the way. It's very, very gentle. And it can also function as a goggle, believe it or not. So they can look under the water and use their third eyelid, which is see-through, just like a goggle. A lot of animals actually have that ability as well. Pretty cool. But they don't have any eyelashes. They don't really need them. But they're just not an animal that would have hair or feathers. So they don't have eyelashes. That's a good question. Now, frogs will actually swallow with their eyes. That's one of my favorite facts about frogs in general. They have these big bulbous eyes which sit on the top of their head, right? That allows them to peep out of the water and this is all frogs, they can peep out of the water while keeping the rest of their body under the water if they want to hide from either their enemies or from prey. And when they catch prey and they're ready to swallow the prey, they actually shut their eyes. Boop. They shut their eyes, and their eyes go down into their head very dramatically, by the way. They're kind of like, so they're up here, and then they sink down into their head, and that actually is functioning as a swallowing mechanism. So the eyes go down, and that helps to push the food down in to their throat. Isn't that super cool? So no eyelashes, but I think their eyes are pretty amazing regardless, aren't they? Oh, Frances, you're almost done, baby. She's like, are we done yet? She always looks so grumpy. But she's so cute even when she's grumpy. What other questions do you guys have? Yikes, carnivores. Yeah, so most frogs, in fact, I think all frogs, correct me if I'm wrong, all you herpetologists out there, all frogs are carnivores when adults. And most frogs, when they're babies, as a tadpole, they are herbivores. That's not every frog species. Some frog species really tadpoles for long, if at all. For example, the Pipa Pipa, or the what's the other name for the Pipa Pipa? But it's a type of amphibian that when they come out, they're just like little miniatures. They're not tadpoles. They're pretty weird. The Pipa Pipa frog is the one that a Suriname toad. That's another name for the Pipa Pipa. So it's a frog / toad. Who knows? But it's a very strange creature. They actually have their eggs in the water, and then mom will actually catch the eggs on their back, and then they have like a really strange like film that develops over the eggs, and mom will just carry the eggs like a backpack until they're ready to pop out of her back. And that's when those Pipa Pipa babies come out, but they come out as like miniatures of the adults. They're one of my favorites. Oh, why, thank you. You guys know us? So I'm surprised he doesn't jump out of your hands, but my son says you were really good with animals. You came to his school one year. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm so glad we got to do that. We are doing in-person animal encounters again, so I would love to see you guys again. That would be super cool. Remind me what school that was. I would love to know. So the reason that she doesn't jump out of my hand, she totally would if I wasn't holding her properly. And that's just natural for frogs to just want to kind of hop away. And she does have the ability to hop away, but their legs are not as long as most frogs. They're a very round species with short legs, but she still could kind of hop out of my hand. But I'm holding her in a gentle way to kind of keep my thumbs on her back to keep her from being able to jump away and hurt herself, right? But they're very tough species as well. They can actually take quite a little leap if they really want to. How many weeks of life do they become carnivores? Well, it really just depends. I think it's a few months before they develop into that adult phase. Now, they're not really adults yet, even when they metamorphosize, because they're still tiny. So when they're babies, frogs, so it's confusing with amphibians because they're technically babies when they're tadpoles, right? And then they're kind of like that little in-between stage, or polywog, right? When they have like legs, but they still have gills and everything like that. And then they eventually turn into their adult phase, but they're not necessarily breeding size yet, if that makes sense. But as soon as they look like a frog, they're just a tiny frog, that is typically when they're going to be eating nothing but meat to my knowledge. But when they're tadpoles still underwater, still breathing water, with gills and everything, that's when they're eating vegetation underwater. But I think they actually do start eating, like it's kind of like a transition, and it's something to research as well. I don't mind researching for you. But most tadpoles kind of transition from herbivore to omnivore and then carnivore. But it doesn't take very long. And it all depends on how quickly the rains come back or how quickly the dry season comes back. It's all seasonal based. And they're just incredible. They can adapt to however long that is, but it's like a few months at the most. Not very long at all, right? And then they're ready. Okay, questions, you guys. I'm looking through everybody else's questions to make sure I'm answering all of them. Oh, Castle Hills. Yes. Funny is, you want to know where I went to school? Here, I went to school at Castle Hill. So I'm actually an alumni of Castle Hill, and here in San Antonio. It's a private school here, and I went there from pre-K all the way through graduation to 12th grade. So K through 12, I was there the whole time. And so I'm an alumni of Castle Hill. So I'm happy that he got to see me out there. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. And you recently saw some tadpoles. That's always super neat to see tadpoles in the water, right? It is going to be coming up on springtime, and there's going to be a lot of animals coming out that wouldn't be out otherwise in the cold, right? I'm so glad the cold weather is over. Yes, yes, yes. I'm just looking through everybody's comments and questions really fast. Thank you so much for commenting and asking questions. It always helps me out. Yes, but they're amazing animals. I think amphibians are some of the most unusual and amazing animals on the planet, don't you? I think they're so strange and so cool. So I don't know if you were paying attention to hear which animal that's green is my favorite green animal. It's actually the next one that we're going to meet. It's the Jackson's chameleon. You want to come on out, buddy? He is really ready to come out. So this is Samuel Jackson. He is, of course, a Jackson's chameleon. And this species is found also in Africa, funny enough. I didn't do that on purpose. I just picked all the green animals today, or 3 of them. And this is a species you would find in Kenya. It's a Jackson's chameleon. They're kind of a smaller species of chameleon. And Samuel is a male Jackson's chameleon because he's got the horns. He has the horns because he's male, I should say. So in this subspecies of Jackson's chameleon, which by the way, there are several, and they're a little bit different from each other depending on where they're located in Kenya and surrounding countries in Africa. This one is called the Xanthelophus Jackson's chameleon, which I know is a mouthful. But essentially, they're just one type of Jacksons where the males have the horns and the females do not. So we do actually have another Jackson's chameleon. I didn't bring her today because she's actually shedding, and so she's a little bit grumpy about that. So when when reptiles are shedding their skin, we tend to leave them alone until they're finished shedding, and then then we can bring them out again. Janet's in the middle of a shed cycle right now, losing skin and growing some body mass. But Janet doesn't actually have any horns like Samuel has. Samuel's got 3 beautiful horns. The other name for the Jackson's chameleon is, of course, the 3-horned chameleon. And they do have 3 horns right there on the front of their face, if you can see. This is an amazing species. The reason I love them so much is because of their looks, their size. They're a nice small-sized chameleon. And they're also a very docile species of chameleon in general. He's trying to go towards the camera and be the star of the show, which he is, of course. But these guys are only found in the mountain regions of Kenya. So that is their kind of habitat. It's up in the mountains. It's called the cloud forest. And these guys live way up high in high altitudes. And so they actually thrive in cooler temperatures, like up to the 70s, maybe 80 degrees at the very most. But when you think of African animals, you usually think of like warm weather, right? And I usually think of warm weather when I think of lizards, right? And even frogs too. Now, Francis the frog would most of the time thrive in a warmer climate for sure. Not necessarily hot, but warmer. This guy here, he would thrive in a cooler environment. Like I said, maybe 70s, 60s, or even down into the 50s sometimes, especially at night. In fact, for Jackson's chameleons, it's really healthy for them to have kind of a temperature drop at night. So we always try to make sure that he has a little bit cooler temperatures at night than he does in the daytime. That's healthy for them. And like I said, these guys are very cool weather. So for that reason, we actually don't keep a heat lamp on any of our Jackson's chameleons because those guys do not do well with too much heat. That is a fun fact about them. But I just adore them. I think they are the cutest chameleons. I think they're the sweetest chameleons in general. And I don't know, I just love them. I think they're so cool. They're smaller. He's about half grown. He could get twice this size. Depending on the individual, though, they can vary in size. Look at those beautiful eyes. So chameleons are known for all sorts of unique features that make them chameleons. Of course, they are lizards, right? And they are green. Not every species of chameleon is green. In fact, we have panther chameleons here once in a while that are way more colors than green. But for these guys, they are green, right? But he can vary his coloration by changing color when he wants to. And chameleons typically change color based on their mood, sometimes temperature change, or maybe he wants to become hotter or colder. If he's feeling a little bit too hot, he might turn very, very light green. If he's feeling too cold for some reason, he might turn darker. Or if he's stressed out, maybe he's a predator or something like that, and he's stressed for any reason or ill, they might turn very dark, depending on what they want to communicate or how they're feeling. So that is basically what they do. They're going to change color based on their feelings, very moody, and temperature as well. And for communication between chameleons as well. Chameleons are definitely not a social type animal. They don't live together in the wild, or we don't recommend keeping them together ever in the care of humans. That is not good. They do not do well together. Let's see if we can see them a little bit better with less light or more light. Let's decide. It looks great against the purple backdrop, I think. So pretty. But they do communicate when they see one another. It might be for mating purposes. They might be courting one another. They might change color and pattern because of that. And of course, we don't really know what they're saying. They do. And they might be trying to fend off other males, or if they're females, other females, etc. So it's for communication a little bit as well. Now, how they change color is really interesting. It's called chromatophores. They have special properties in their skin that are kind of like pores, and they're very tiny and we can't really see them. They're nearly microscopic. But what those chromatophores do, kind of in between their scales there, is they will open and close, expand and contract to give the illusion of color change. So he can change his pattern. You can probably see that he's this pattern, kind of like a camo pattern on this side. And on the other side right now, he's a slightly different pattern. Sometimes Samuel will actually be a totally different pattern from one side to the next, depending on how he's feeling. And whatnot, whatever he wants to say to me, I guess. And that is how they do that. They have these special like pore type things in their skin, which expand and contract to give the illusion of color change. Some chameleons, and I believe all chameleons, actually have what's called iridophores as well, but especially the brightly colored chameleons, like panther chameleons, those guys are really known for their iridophores, which show all sorts of different colors and patterns and shiny properties in their skin. Pretty neat. But the Jacksons are a little bit more simple in their coloration, but I just think that they're so gorgeous being just like green like that. Oftentimes he'll just be completely solid green. And oftentimes the younger they are, the more pattern they show as well. When he is a little bit bigger, he probably won't show as many patterns. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's a camouflage tactic to stay hidden, because the smaller you are in nature, the more vulnerable you are to predators. Now, another thing that's special about chameleons is their arboreal lifestyle. A lot of lizards do live up in the trees, of course, right? We know that a lot of them can climb trees, like geckos and things like that. But these guys have a totally different way of climbing than other lizards. They have fused toes. Now, he's got 5 toes on each of his feet in the back, and each of his little hand-like feet hands. In the front too, he's got 5 toes on each foot, but those toes are fused together in a strange way that look like mittens. They're kind of like this. And he can kind of clamp, you can see him there. They kind of clamp onto my arm or onto a tree branch to be able to just easily climb on a tree branch with no problems whatsoever. They also have a prehensile tail, which I know he's straightening out right now, but he could grab my finger just like this. I'm gonna see if he'll do it. I'm gonna gently lift him up. They can actually lift their entire body weight very easily with no problems with their tail. It is a truly prehensile tail. It does not fall off if it becomes too stressed or anything like that. If it's gripping too hard or if it's being pulled, it does not fall off like some other lizards' tails can. See how he's gripping just like another hand? It's kind of like a monkey. Some monkeys anyway. Not every monkey has a prehensile tail, but he sure does. So that reminds me of some monkeys. And then they also have amazing flat bodies. So they're very, very thin. It's hard to see because he's moving, right? But if he's coming right at you, his body is relatively flat and kind of thin this way. It's like somebody squished him. So some lizards that like live on the ground, or just lizards in general, ooh, goodness, they have like more of a traditional lizard's belly or body. These guys are more designed for going in between the tree branches and in between the leaves of the trees without being noticed. That's what helps them hide, right? And furthermore, they can actually sway with the movement of the tree. They can move their body kind of like back and forth as they move to be able to either stalk prey, which is usually bugs, right? They're insectivores. They eat bugs. They're another carnivore, right? Like the frog. Or that can help them to blend in to stay hidden from danger, something that's dangerous to them, like a predator. You might be wondering what their main predators are. Well, it could be other lizards. It could be birds. All sorts of animals might eat a small lizard like this. And they also have amazing eyes. So my favorite thing about chameleons is going to be their eyes. So chameleons, unlike most lizards, do not have ears, at least externally. They do have internal ears, which help them to balance, like your inner ear helps you with balance, right? And they also might be able to hear a little bit, but they certainly don't use their hearing as their main sense. Their main sense by a long shot is going to be those big, beautiful eyes. And you can see they even have like skin or casing around their big, beautiful eyes, but their eyes can move independently. Let's see if I can show you. Maybe he'll be a little more comfortable on his tree branch. You want to go on your tree branch? Oh, yes, that's way better. So he can hang on his tree. It's just a little, fake tree branch that I usually travel with him, when he's traveling or just hanging out with me here in the studio. He's on it in his travel enclosure. But I want to make sure you can see his eyes. It's okay, buddy. I know. Chameleons are typically kind of a nervous animal, so we try to give them you know, the feeling that they're going to be okay. Nothing's going to get you, buddy. It's okay. So his eyes are independently moving. So one eye can be looking one direction and the other eye can be looking another direction. And they're constantly looking around, especially when they're active like this and awake, unless they're sleeping or something like that. But their vision is so sharp. It's full color, very acute. And that is their main sense. That's how they look around for danger. That's how they hunt as well. And once they find a bug that they really want to eat or something that looks really tasty, their eyes will actually look forward binocularly, just like human eyes. Oh, there's a little glimpse of that. Look at his crazy eyes. He's looking around for all sorts of danger and things just to make sure he's going to be okay. And that's normal for chameleons. He's being very active right now, which is great. Very healthy. So these guys, like I said, they use their vision to look around for danger, sharp, super sharp vision, full color, all the things. And that is their main way to, like I said, even communicate with their skin changing and all that, their color change and pattern change. But they all obviously use their eyes to hunt as well. And they're looking for bug movement, anything that looks tasty like a bug, they will want to eat it. And when they find something that looks really good, that's when their eyes will swing forward binocularly, 2 eyes forward, just like most animals, or at least most predators, right? And then that great big tongue will come out of his mouth. So his tongue is actually the length of the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. So his tongue is literally this long when extended. So the tongue can come out. And basically there's a mechanism that allows the tongue to fling right out of the mouth and stretch. And the end of the tongue, which would stick to the bug, is very, very big, bulbous, round, and sticky. And it would basically wrap around or engulf the bug and stick to it, and then immediately draw back into the mouth. And that's when he would chomp it down with his teeth, just like most lizards eat, right? But they are just the most unique lizards on the planet. Not specifically this species, but chameleons in general. And I just love Jackson's chameleon. Ash says he's such a stud. What a compliment. And Samuel, I've had since he was a teeny tiny little baby chameleon. He's still not full grown yet, like I said. He's about half grown or so. But you should look back at old videos to see how much he's grown, or old pictures on our social media. Oh my gosh, he was so tiny when we got him. His horns were like super short. And now he's got super long horns. You might be wondering what the horns are for. They're mostly for show, to really impress females during the breeding season. And if he were to encounter another male during the breeding season, he could actually have a little sparring contest or like a shoving contest. And they typically use their horns to do that. But don't worry, it's not typically a very serious fight. They will usually just do that to show off to the females. And the female will either select the male, or one of the males will give up and leave. And then it'll be by default, he will get selected. Pretty neat. Donna says, I love them too. Yeah, I can't think of anybody that doesn't love chameleons, or at least like chameleons. They're just so cute. There's something very non-threatening about chameleons. They're super cool. They don't make noise. They're super quiet. Those big, beautiful, cute eyes. They look like a cartoon character. They kind of look like Kermit the Frog a little bit. So I think that's kind of a comforting thing to most people. They're definitely not a scary animal, are they? But to a bug, this would be terrifying. Like a dragon. He's so cute, thank you. Are his hands like Velcro? So basically he's just pinching. He's pinching to grab on. So they're just grabbing on. Their hands are not really sticky whatsoever. They're just clamping on. Now it doesn't hurt or anything like that. Some larger chameleons might hurt a little bit. It's not that bad. I mean, unless you're just sensitive to that kind of thing, I guess. But he does have little nails. But they're essentially just like any other foot of a lizard. They're just fused toes. So he's got 2 toes fused together on one side and 3 toes fused together on the other side. Now the hands in the front are the opposite of the feet in the back. So on the feet in the back, he's got 3 toes on the outside and 2 on the inside. And it's the opposite on the hands in the front. He's got 2 toes on the outside and 3 on the inside for whatever reason. But they're essentially just designed that way. And they just grip. They just grip onto the tree branches, or in this case, my hand. And that's how they climb. So very, very unique, right? And he almost slipped there, but I'm not going to let him, number one. And also he has his tail to catch him. And that's exactly what the tail is for. It's to help him get balance. It's to help him be used like another limb. Pretty neat. But they're not sticky in any way. They're not like a gecko's toes, where they literally stick to you and you have to kind of like peel them off of you sometimes, or they will peel them off of you. And neither one of those species hurts geckos nor chameleons when you're holding them, but it's very different way of climbing. Very, very unique. There's no other lizard except chameleons that have those clampy feet and / hands? Great question. Y'all think that he needs to wear a little hat. He is super handsome. We don't necessarily put hats on our animals, but I appreciate the suggestion. But no worries there. I don't know if he would appreciate a hat. So chameleons are not the best pets. I do always want to kind of try to remember to tell you guys about chameleons, even though they're so cute and everybody loves them. They are not good pets for the average person. I don't really recommend chameleons for anyone at all. They are a lot of work. They have a ton of health issues that can arise. They're very sensitive. They're not really the best for handling if you don't really know what you're doing. It's not like a bearded dragon or something like that where you need to handle them to get them used to you. In fact, it's really better to handle them as little as possible. Now, of course, we use our animals for education, so they have to be handled a little bit. So we really don't pick them up every day. We don't, hold them and snuggle them. They don't like that. We do everything very minimally with them. And they typically don't go to like all day events. For example, they will go to very brief kind of classroom presentations or brief like 1 hour birthday parties and things like that. And that's about it. And then they come home and they get to go back home, and typically they take a break for a few days. They're not a good pet. Especially because of their health issues and because of their stress levels. And they're very specialized. They need specialized lighting. They need specialized homes that are ventilated and aerated and lots of live plants. They're definitely not for everybody. To me, because I have a lot of experience with them, I think they're a little bit easier than some lizards, but I know what to look for as far as their health issues. And even I don't always see every last thing wrong with them. So that's something that you have to deal with sometimes when you have your own animals in your own zoo, right? But that being said, chameleons are not for everyone. I certainly do not recommend them for children. I don't recommend them for most people. So please, please, please always do your research before just adopting any animal, including reptiles. Chameleons are extremely, they're more like for looking at like a fish or something like that. But even then, they are definitely a challenge to keep healthy and happy. But that being said, they are totally worth it in my opinion. And that's why we have them to be able to show you what they look like and educate you guys on all of their care and all of their amazing adaptation and how amazing they really are. And this is one of my favorites. Another really fun thing about the Jackson's chameleon is they do not lay eggs. These guys are live-bearing chameleons. That is not necessarily the only one that gives live birth. There are a few chameleon species that do so, but that is so neat in my opinion. Many chameleons in general do lay eggs. They are egg-laying animals. That's hard to say 5 times fast. But some chameleons, like this one, actually give live birth. Now, of course, he's a male, so he would never give live birth. But female Jackson's chameleons do give live birth to live babies. They're extremely small when they come out of mom, and they have little litters of them, like multiples. Isn't that amazing? They do have to get away from mom immediately because she is definitely not going to be nice to them. They are not good moms. They will sometimes eat their baby if they're hungry enough, but typically they can get away and be just fine. But again, not a social animal, not a good mom. This is the way of nature, right? This is a good question. From Richard. Hi, Richard. How drastic can he change color? If you put him in a red box, will he turn red? No, this species of chameleon can't really turn any colors except for different shades of green, which is why he's so appropriate for St. Patrick's Day. We're meeting some green animals. They can change their patterns. He could be totally solid green, and he could be all the way almost black if he really wanted to be. So his range would be like very, very light lime green, all the way, like I said, to a very dark brown, almost black in coloration, and any of those in between. So kind of like a camo pattern. So you can see his camo pattern right now, a little bit faded, and he could be solid as well and show no pattern whatsoever. So for this species, not so drastic. I still love them the most though. I think they're just so beautiful because I love green and I love purple, by the way. Purple and green are my favorite colors. But I'm gonna pick him up off my arm. Oh goodness. But if you look at his pattern on this side, I want to show you something cool. So his pattern is like this on this side. And if I flip him around, oh, he changed again. So it was solid on the other side, but he's now getting too smart for me. But sometimes he will be totally different pattern on one side or the other, like solid and then patterned. But this is about his range here. You can see all the different camo patterns there, kind of brownish green and light green. And like I said, that whole pattern could just go away. Pretty amazing. But it's actually a myth that chameleons in general will change color to just match their background. There was a really famous YouTube video going around a few years ago of a veiled chameleon touching some sunglasses. There was maybe 6 or 7 pair of sunglasses, all different rainbow colors. So each pair of sunglasses, they were having the chameleon kind of perch on them or touch them. And the chameleon was like changing solid pink, solid purple, solid red, whatever. That is completely fake. That is a fake video, fake news. That chameleon cannot do that. Veiled chameleons are similar to this species. They have ranges of greens, browns, yellows, things like that, maybe a little bit of tan, etc. They're really pretty, but they can't just change like purple, coral, pink, whatever. They cannot do that. That is a myth. And the chameleons that can change those pretty colors, they're usually that color anyway. Like they're a mix of those colors, like some of our panther chameleons and things, right? All right. I hope that answers your question. I hope that makes sense. But that is a myth. They can't just like touch whatever and change colors just because they want to. But they can see full color. They have great color vision and amazingly visual animals. He's just looking around right now. He's looking right into y'all's souls out there. My goodness. Looking right in the camera. So he wants to climb down, so I'm going to let him. And again, chameleons aren't the most fond of long-term handling, so we try to keep it brief with them and be as gentle as possible. So we want to make sure they're not stressed out. And again, not the best pet, but they are certainly fascinating animals and wonderful to behold, aren't they? So cool to see him getting lighter and darker. Yeah, it can happen like right in front of your eyes, like really amazing. But no, they can't just turn red or whatever color they want. I wish, that'd be super cool. But I think they're amazing just the way they are. Well, just want to make sure I'm answering everybody's questions and acknowledging everybody's comments. So again, happy St. Patrick's Day to those of you just joining us. Hi, my name is Amanda. This is Once in a Wild. This is our Once in a Wild Wednesday live stream where each and every Wednesday we bring the zoo to you virtually for free. And we do, of course, have tipping and donation options down below. A couple of them are Venmo, Cash App. We also have a PayPal as well. All the links are also down below in the description. A free way to help us out is by subscribing to our YouTube channel and telling everybody about us and liking the video, sharing the video, as well as following us on Facebook too. And we also do have other social media to follow. But subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'm sure you guys have already. But if you have friends and family that might be interested in subscribing, that helps us out quite a bit. If we get enough subscribers, we can proceed to the next step as far as YouTube goes and be able to make a little bit of extra money that way as well. So that helps us out quite a bit. And to you guys, it's free just by sharing the video, liking them, subscribing, all of that. So thank you so very much. But if you would like to leave a tip, you guys know the drill. There's options down below as well as in the description. And if you would like your own animal encounter virtually, we can provide Zoom animal encounters, which are custom. You can pick the animals that attend. Typically, we show 6 to 8 animals per hour long Zoom, and those are great for classrooms and birthday parties and all sorts of things. And let me know if you're interested. And if you happen to live in the San Antonio area, we are in person once again, so we'd love to help you out with an in-person event. And let me know if you'd like further details on that too. So you guys ready to meet our final green animal? So today is St. Patrick's Day. And we are meeting some green animals. We just met a frog a little bit ago. We met Francis, the green frog. We met Samuel, the green Jackson's chameleon. And now I think it's time to meet another green lizard. I bet you guys can guess what it is. It's my favorite green lizard that we have. If you thought Samuel was my favorite individual, you're wrong. He's not. And you're very welcome. You're so very welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. All right, no problem. You can always rewatch the videos. That helps us out as well to rewatch them on Facebook or YouTube, of course, and we'll see you then. All right. So I try not to pick favorites of all my collection here at Once in a While, but sometimes animals are pretty special, and sometimes animals are with us for a very long time, so I can't help but just fall in love with them, even if they don't love us back. So if you thought, well, Francis the frog, as well as the Jackson chameleon, Samuel, they're probably not that fond of me per se, and this next one really isn't either, but she learns to tolerate me over the last 10 years that I've had her, and she's one of our earliest animal ambassadors, way before Once in a Wild was ever even an idea in our heads. It's Joanna the Iguana. She's here today, and she's a fantastic iguana. So another animal I definitely don't recommend anybody go and buy. Do not, I repeat, do not buy yourself a green iguana. They are not good pets. So what happened with this animal here is she is a rescue. And a lot of our animals end up being rescue animals because they either have too long of a life expectancy for people to really take care of for a long term, or maybe they didn't realize what they were getting into. And the proper thing to do, and the most responsible thing to do, in my opinion, if you find yourself in that situation, please do not ever, ever, ever just let the animal go, or just keep the animal in a condition that you may not be proud of, or just keep the animal even though you don't know what you're doing. Always try to find the animal a proper home if you have to. That is okay. That is the responsible thing to do if you find yourself in that situation where you didn't realize what you were getting into, or you just know that it would have a better home. So this is Joanna. She's an iguana that I actually stumbled upon at a flea market in Florida when I used to live in Florida. I mentioned that I lived there before. This is in Jacksonville, Florida. I believe it was in Jacksonville or just outside of Jacksonville. But it was at one of the flea markets over there, and I was just browsing around, walking around. I almost never go to flea markets, so it was super random. And I happened to wander into one of the booths or stores in there, and it was a little pet store. They mostly had bird supplies and other random pet supplies. And of course, I see this giant green iguana in the store, and she is green for St. Patrick's Day. Look at her beautiful green belly. This is another lizard that can change colors, but she's usually bright green like that. She's a little darker right now. It's a little bit, just a little bit darker than she normally is. She might lighten up right here on camera. It'd be pretty cool to see. She also has chromatophores. I can change color for her. And basically, I saw her in a dark corner of that little store in the flea market, and she was being kept in a kind of medium-sized fish tank situation scenario with no perching. And iguanas are arboreal too, just like the chameleon. They climb trees. They're most comfortable on a tree perch or perching on something. Right now she's hanging out of my hand, right? And I'm holding her gently like this so she can feel comfortable. And she didn't have anything to sit on. She didn't have a rock or anything. It was just some mulch on the bottom of a medium-sized, I wouldn't say 50-gallon tank, something like that. Not big enough for an iguana by far. Iguanas should never be kept in a fish tank, unless you are raising one up from a baby, I guess. But even then, it's really not a great scenario. They need something to grip on. They need an arboreal situation. So a tree climbing situation where they can perch. They're almost like having a bird, to be honest with you. And she actually has a great big giant enclosure outside now. But at the time, I saw that scenario and I said, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, should I even say anything? Because sometimes I'm non-confrontational and sometimes I can't help myself. I try to, at least ask questions like, hey, has this animal been here very long? What's going on? And apparently what they told me was that somebody had abandoned her. Somebody had dropped her off and said, you know what, I don't want this lizard anymore, which is super sad. And this, again, was 10 years ago, and she was already pretty large. And they said that they were trying to, I guess, find her another home. So I said, hey, I've got a great big screened in back porch where I think she would just do really well. So at the time, I actually just had an apartment in Florida, but the weather there is usually very, very good for iguanas. In fact, iguanas love Florida and have actually gone feral there in other news, especially down in South Florida. Every now and then Florida will get cold and you have to bring them in. But for the majority of the year, they can almost live outside as long as you have a safe enclosure for them, safe for the environment, safe for them, etc. And escape proof and all that, because they're large lizards with big claws and they can escape if they want to. But anyway, so I had a really great scenario for her at the time. So I thought, why not? Why don't I just, make an offer on this iguana? And they were like, well, they offered me one price and I kind of talked them down to a little bit less. And I don't honestly really know why they were even selling her, because I thought it was a rescue type situation, but who knows? Who knows what's the truth, right? Who really knows? But regardless, I brought her home that day because I knew that she probably could have gone home with anybody that just came across her. And I know how iguanas are. Iguanas are one of the more abandoned or rehomed type lizards in all lizards. And rightly so, they're terrible pets. Now, I don't recommend ever abandoning your pets, but a lot of times people will be misled about iguanas. They will purchase a very, very, very tiny baby in a pet store, and they're very small when you can usually purchase them, and they're extremely inexpensive because most iguanas come from a wild caught situation. She probably did too back in her day, right? Because she's older. We estimate she's at least, 15, 16, 17 years old, maybe more. We don't know. She's an older gal. These guys can live older than that, but she's not young anymore. Let's just face it, Joanna, you're not young. Sorry. But regardless, I'm sure she was probably a wild caught iguana. So they typically will either farm them or catch them in the wild and bring them over to pet stores and sell them dirt cheap where people can buy them. And they buy them as tiny babies and they grow into a giant monster like this. And she's a female. She's 100% female. They are a dimorphic species that you can 100% tell the difference when they're full grown. But when they are babies, you cannot tell the difference between male and female. And that is a huge problem. Not only are males vastly larger and usually more aggressive, and they don't get along with each other at all. And typically males will be extremely territorial. She's mildly territorial. She's just kind of like, she's a very good iguana as far as green iguanas go, but she's not the greatest. But she's manageable is what I'm trying to say. She doesn't attack anybody. She's pretty chill most of the time until you mess with her. Sometimes she just doesn't want to be messed with. But anyway, male iguanas go through seasonal changes and they go through territorial disputes, and they will absolutely injure you. They will try to bite. They will try to tail whip you with their giant tail. I'm going to show you how long the tail is. It's super long. They have one of the longest tails of all the lizards, besides like monitor lizards and things like that. They have super long tails, and they use them as a bullwhip. They don't lose their tail unless it's a very serious injury or something like that. But they can't just drop their tail with tail autotomy like some lizards can, like geckos and anoles. They use their tail for a weapon. They use their claws for a weapon. They have razor sharp claws that are some of the sharpest claws in the animal kingdom. They are like a hot knife through butter on your skin. So the reason that I'm able to hold her is because I give her a mani-pedi every now and then to make sure that she is holdable for me, because I need to be able to hold her, to manage her, and also show her in presentations of things. She's trying to climb up my hair right now. But all of these things make them terrible, terrible animals to own in your own home. They are just not a pet. It's really strange to me that this animal ever ended up becoming a pet whatsoever, because they are terrible pets. They also don't really appreciate people. They'd rather be left alone. They'd rather be a wild animal, and that's what they are. And they're wonderful animal ambassadors when they are like this, because it's a great education opportunity to teach people about the species, but also why you shouldn't get one. Unless you are a reptile expert with a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of space, you should not have a green iguana. And that is definitely my strong opinion on them. You guys are so funny in Florida. Let's see what you guys have to say. OMG. Richard says, I've seen them wild in Miami. Yep, they're feral in Miami. So they are actually not supposed to be there. They're a feral species, which basically means they were either released or they escaped or storms brought them in, etc. A lot of animals in Florida end up becoming feral or wild when they shouldn't be there because of tropical storms. You guys were just mentioning a tropical storm down in Florida. That's the only thing I don't like about Florida is storms. I love Florida. I would live there again if I could. But the storms can definitely be a big problem for buildings in general, including reptile facilities. So that's oftentimes what causes reptiles to escape, is because of natural disasters like tropical storms. So that is a big problem for causing feral species to escape. You said, I have such a big heart, I should name her Lucky. Well, that's a little bit scary, because when you name an animal Lucky, a lot of times they become the opposite. So we named her Joanna the Iguana. We thought that was a cute name for her. You can see her big, beautiful dewlap. I'm moving it with my finger. That's not her moving it. See that? So that's her dewlap, which is a flap of skin that hangs below their throat. So on a male, her cheek scales, that big round cheek scale that she has, their cheek scales would be a lot larger. Their cheeks are fatter on males. The dewlap is bigger, and they're just about 2 to 3 times larger in general and weightier. She's a pretty decent sized female. Again, we don't know her age, but we know she's at least, 15, because when I got her, she was already pretty large, and it takes them a while to grow up. But then again, I don't know, because they may not have been feeding her properly. These guys are 100% vegan. They don't eat any sorts of meats or animal protein at all. And they only eat the leaves of trees, flowers, fruits, and things like that. They'll live up in the treetops. You can see how she's gripping onto me with her long, giant toes, very big toes. They're great for climbing, great for slashing too, if they really want to. But designed really for climbing and scaling high trees, 100 feet high if they want to. And they will live up in the trees for safety. They are green like the trees. They blend right in as well. Look at her cute belly. She's so chunky right now. And then they will also eat the leaves of the trees, the flowers, and the fruits up in the trees. So they rarely have to come down for anything unless it is time to go to the restroom. So usually they'll come down from the tree into the water and have a nice little soak. And that's where they will use the restroom. They'll go potty in the water, typically in a river. And also they can jump out of the tree if they feel threatened by a hawk or some kind of aerial threat, or by anything in their tree, like maybe a big cat, like a jaguar is in the tree and they're just like, what? They can actually jump out of the tree all the way down. They're so tough. They can survive very, very long falls. That's actually how we study iguanas in the wild. Scientists will shake their trees sometimes and cause them to jump out of the tree. They're perfectly fine. And like I said, they can jump like 100 feet down and be fine. Typically, though, they're going to jump into the river or some sort of body of water. And that way they can be hidden immediately when they jump down. But they can jump down onto the grass or other tree branches below and be okay. That tells you how tough this animal is. They're absolutely incredible wild animals for sure. But they are very wild and just not very good pets. And the main reason is because not only are they're very needy and have special things that they require to keep them happy and healthy, not only do they need proper diet of lots and lots of healthy salads with the right type of salad and the right type of supplements and vitamins, they also have to have special lighting unless you keep them outdoors. Now, she lives outside most of the year. As long as it's over 60 degrees, and that's most of the time here, she lives outside. If it's under 60 degrees, we bring her inside. So tonight we actually did bring her inside. So it was great timing to be able to bring her in and also have her on the show. So she's going to spend the night inside. She might go back out tomorrow, depending on the weather. But that natural UV rays and the natural UV rays and the natural sun is the best for them. But if you're keeping them inside all the time, say you live somewhere that really doesn't get warm very often, like Michigan or something like that, you have to keep them indoors with special lighting that can help them to thrive. I'm just reading your comments. Yeah, you're telling me all about the iguanas that were out there in Miami. My goodness. Here's a good question. Is it true that if you touch a wild iguana, that you can get salmonella? So I could get salmonella from Joanna. So it's not because they're wild or not. It's just because animals are dirty sometimes, right? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to insult you. She's like, excuse me, you're dirty. And the truth is humans are dirtier than lizards. But lizards and other reptiles can, of course, carry salmonella. So can frogs, and so can other animals. But what you want to do is just always wash your hands. So I'm not going to like lick her and really, or anything like that. I'm really not, I promise. And I'm not going to eat right after this with my bare hand and eat like a sandwich or something like that. I'm going to make sure and wash my hands after all the frog handling and reptile handling I've done today. But that's just good practice for any sort of animal. You can actually get sick from chickens. You can get sick from all sorts of animals, probably a little bit more commonly than birds. Sorry, a little more commonly from birds than reptiles is getting salmonella, because as you may know, chicken carries salmonella, just like raw chicken if you eat that. But yes, you can get them from wild animals or animals in somebody's home. So when we do presentation, that's a good thing to think about, right? So we always try to make sure all of our guests are hand sanitizing. So we do bring hand sanitizer mostly nowadays for the human interaction, but also for the animal interaction. So if anybody touches an animal, we always recommend washing your hands or using some hand sanitizer that we always bring along with us. I hope that answers your question. But yes, you can get salmonella from reptiles. I've never gotten it from reptiles, and you guys know how much I've handled reptiles in my life. So it's not very common as long as you're using your common sense and washing your hands and not licking them, etc. She's trying to climb my shoulder, and I'm not going to let her because that wouldn't be very comfortable for me. So that's why she's bending backwards there. Now, Joanna is actually a very well-behaved iguana. She might be a little bit wiggly right now, but for a green iguana, she is great. I can't tell you enough how wonderful she is for her species, because most of these guys are definitely not handleable, but especially if they're boys. The boy iguanas are really usually the problem. Look at those muscles. You can see how strong they are. Even as a female, she is super strong. She's like Wonder Woman, and she's got great big giant legs as well. See those meaty legs that they have? They almost look like frog legs. You can see how very big she is. She's got a great big wide tail, and the tail will taper down to be very thin, which they can use it, of course, like a bullwhip for defense if they want to. It's basically like a monster. They are definitely not for everyone. And on top of that, their claws, as well as their teeth, are extremely sharp. They are razor sharp. And you would think that they would eat meat because of all those, sharp tools that they have. And it's not for eating meat. It's for eating very tough leaves in the trees where they live in the jungle, because they're a jungle type animal, which explains a lot because the jungle is a tough place to live. So they have to be tough too. She is being very good. I agree. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to go ahead and set her down as well because she's got to go down sometime. And I hope you guys have enjoyed all of our green animals today. I hope to see you next week here at Once in a Wild Wednesday. Your mom says that I am great. That is so nice. And I appreciate you guys watching each and every time, almost every single time you guys watch. And I really, really appreciate that. So thanks to all of our friends, family, and followers for joining. And thanks if you are new for joining in. Please subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook if you haven't already. Well, follow us on Facebook, I should say. And please like the video and share them if you haven't already. And if you would like to leave a donation, those options are down below for you as always. And Joanna says, see you next time. I'm going to put her away. And again, I wanted to remind everybody to stay tuned for some really exciting announcements coming up, including our events that are coming up soon that I already announced at the beginning of the video, like Pet Fest and our Once Upon a Party event coming up very, very soon. We're very excited about those events. So we hope to see you there if you happen to be in our area of the world. And if not, we hope to see you next time here at Once in a Wild, and let me know if I can help in any way, shape, or form. I also do want to talk about one quick thing really quick because it came to my mind today because I'm seeing a lot of it. So it is getting warmer outside, you guys. It is becoming springtime. So you are going to be seeing more animals and wildlife in general. If you start seeing snakes and frogs and lizards and all sorts of reptiles and all sorts of animals hanging out in your own backyard, please don't pick them up or handle them in any way, shape, or form. Now, if it's an emergency type situation, I do understand there are exceptions, but in general, kids especially, please don't handle wildlife. Please look at them from a distance, take pictures as much as you want and enjoy them. But if you have a wildlife situation where you need something removed, like a snake or anything, please call a professional to handle that situation and make sure that professional and that company handles the animals humanely and will re-release them in a humane manner. Okay, guys? I do want to emphasize that because we're seeing a lot of snakes popping out in people's yards, and people are usually afraid of snakes, especially. And I get a lot of messages, which I don't mind. Please feel free to contact me anytime at this number down below. Send me a text of a picture of an animal you need help identifying. Rather than harm the animal. We definitely want to make sure that all of you guys, and I know you guys are great, but anybody that you know as well, neighbors, friends, family, please encourage them not to harm wildlife, especially snakes, because a lot of snakes do become harmed this time of year, and it breaks my little heart. So I do want to advocate for that. Also, let them know that harming a snake is the best way to become bitten by a snake, because of course the animal wants to defend itself. And that goes for all wildlife. We want to leave wildlife wild, and they all have their jobs to do. And they all have their purpose in place, and they should be there as long as they're not a feral species, right? So I do want to end with that and just encourage you guys to reach out to me if you have any wildlife questions whatsoever. That is exactly what I'm here for. I don't mind at all helping you identify snakes or any sort of animal that you might be curious about. And if you need anything at all, including animal programming, be sure to let me know. And we will see you guys next time. We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing once in a while. Together. Once in a while. I wanna hear you say once in a while. Never fun for me and you. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week, every single Wednesday, of course, at 6:30 p.m. Central. And remember, next week, we're going to talk all about rabbits because, of course, Easter is right around the corner. So look forward to that, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.